Hey, it's TDA, and welcome back to episode 19 of this by the book Let's Play, where we use blueprints to do stuff faster. And blueprints we shall use today, even though there's a few things we are going to build manually. I think this is probably going to be the last episode of this specific playthrough. Why? Because we're near the end of the game. And of course, the end of the game in the game like this being a little bit subjective, because technically, when we do the last research in the tree, which says you in the game, and just in case you don't know it, it's this one. Mission completed, it basically is the end of the game, but of course there is a whole new game after that that unlocks where you can do the other researches. So, for example, the upgrades over here that give you more drones, but especially this one is very juicy, where you get the veins utilization up and running even higher than it already is, and you can keep researching this to basically get yourself infinite material and get all the power in the world. That is actually very interesting, and I'll give you a quick sneak preview. I was actually already working on that, but I decided that the process I was using to build the endgame facilities is actually something I also want to apply to the early game. For several reasons. It's very fun to do, and I think if you like this type of game, it's probably fun for you guys to watch this as well. It is also something I've seen a lot of people asking about. There is a lot of people when playing these games that are really have a bit of a dislike when it comes to spaghetti, lasagna, whatever you want to call it. And even though I think my builds have been pretty clean, there is a degree of lasagna, spaghetti, whatever you want to call it, because I do use these belts to connect all of these hubs up. Again, I explained why I do that, and I think it's a very valid reason to do so, and all in all, I think it's not really spaghetti as it's pretty organized, but you can actually do better. And I'm actually, well, better if you want to avoid even more of the spaghetti. So, of course, anyone should play the game as they want, but I did feel a little bit challenged to try a different playstyle, and I think that lends itself very well for a new playthrough. So, enough about the new playthrough, it's coming up, I'm excited, I hope you are too, so watch this space for that next playthrough. But before we get to that, we definitely need to finish this Let's Play. So, let's see, what do we need to build, because we are, and this is not the screen I was looking for, this one. There is quite a few things that we still need to build. A few things we've researched, so we can actually use graviton lenses in our ray receivers, and ray receivers is actually something we've already had for a very long time. It's basically, it allows you to drain your energy from your Dyson Swarm and Dyson Sphere and get the energy back on your planet. But we haven't actually done that yet. So we will start using that. We can also extract photons from that same energy, so we need to build some of those. And it gives you hydrogen, no idea why. It has probably a very scientific reason, but we mostly need that little minus item, the antimatter. That is what we need to process. There's a few things we can do with that. So first of all, we can make antimatter fuel rods. Those are ridiculously powerful fuel rods. If you put them in your own vehicle, it will basically be charged forever. I mean, the deuterium fuel rods were already doing that pretty much, but these ones are even better. But more specifically, we can combine those with these annihilation constraint spheres, and that will allow us to make artificial suns. Actually, we don't actually need the fuel rods for that, but the fuel rods go into the other artificial stars. So this is basically a endgame power facility. As you can see, it gives 72 megawatts of power, but not by itself. You do need to put material in, and that is where the antimatter rods come in. So this is something that is very useful if you want to expand into the later game. Plop a few down on a planet and you're pretty much good to go in terms of setting up your production. Of course, assuming you supply them with enough antimatter fuel rods. But then last but not least, we also need to work on the universe matrices. And those are made from all the different research items that we've made before. As you can see, we have a steady production of all of them going on. I did expand, well, in the last few episodes to a few other planets. I didn't actually show much of that because, quite frankly, it was just doing stuff I've already done. And I also think that doing that was more leaning towards what I intend to do in the new playthrough. So again, different approach, but also more open to the endgame part of this game. And endgame is what comes after this. Because as soon as we unlock this, basically what you want to do is scale up the production of all of this so you can make even more white science. And then basically you get into a loop where you do that over and over, colonize the entire galaxy and have a lot of fun with that. But for this episode, we want to produce white science, and in order to win the game, so to speak, we need to research this research. I actually completed pretty much every other research in the game. Two things I've skipped, so the stress system is not fully optimized yet. There's just 2 more levels of that to build the full Dyson Sphere. As you can see, it's rather expensive and it just takes a while. But we pretty much have that completed. I also skipped this one, so this is the faster assembler. Not that special. It's a little annoying to make considering the materials it needs. And to be honest, I think the Mark II assemblers are, for the most part, pretty much fine. But of course you can speed things up, and especially if you do progress into the end game, you want both these, as well as the other thing that we did actually research is the second tier smelter. But again, I didn't use these yet, for the simple reason that they need annoying materials, specifically the unipolar magnets, which are coming from other systems. You don't actually have them anywhere close to where you start out. Anyway, enough about what we haven't done yet. What are we actually going to do? So, let's see. Endgame. I made a specific area for this. We need to build the spheres. And again, this is not the most exciting build, but we do need it. And this is the very simplistic spheres. Now, these spheres are very easy to make. They just need the particle containers, they need processors, and that is it. So, like I said, not the most exciting thing to build, but anyway, we need them and we will get them. The processors are a little bit heavy in demand from other places in my build as well, but as you can see, they're still coming in, so we don't need many of these, so we should be fine on that. Then let's talk about ray receivers. We have our sea of solar panels over here. It looks so pretty, but we can make it look even better. Let's see, where shall we build them? Probably in the most direct area of the sun, which could be, for example, over here. Solar power. Let me see, which is actually not under power, for a good reason. So let's just put a few of these down. There we go. Okay, so these are the ray receivers, and the ray receivers basically have 2 settings. You can either use them for power generation, which is basically draining the Dyson Sphere. So as you can see, we're currently getting around 6 megawatts of power from this one. And if I build more of these, bad example probably because I do have a lot of power from my Dyson Sphere, but if at some point you exceed the power consumption from your Dyson Sphere, I think we have over 1 gigawatt right now, yes, so basically, subtle hint by the way, subtle hint. Anyway, 1.3 gigawatts of energy, so that's a lot of these, but in theory you could build so many that you actually run out of power. And then you would see this drop. You can also see this actually increase, and you see we're actually already up to 6.4 and still climbing, because as long as this keeps receiving energy, it'll actually be more efficient. And considering we are here on a planet that's always facing the sun with this direction, this is going to be up to 100% in no time. This is, by the way, a reason why if you have a normal rotating planet, typically one of the better places to build array receivers is around the poles, because they tend to be exposed to the light for the longest, because of course the circle around the planet isn't as big on the poles. Depends a little bit on how it's tilted, but I won't go too complicated when it comes to that. The other impact that you can see here is the array receiving efficiency. This is something that you can also research, so those are these researches. I will show them to you here. These improve the solar array energy dissipation, or actually make sure it they dissipate less fast, so that basically just means anything you do with solar energy becomes more efficient. Yeah, so this is the basics on how these work. The second setting that these have is Photon Generation. So if I put them to this, they will actually no longer be charging, as in giving me energy, but they will be using that energy to convert into photons. And as you can see, there's a huge amount of energy going into this. And the more it's going into this, the faster this will be producing. But again, if this is higher than you're actually producing in terms of energy in your Dyson Sphere, building more doesn't actually speed up your production, because they will split the energy over the ray receiver. So building then, let's say 100 ray receivers is no use, because they will become very, very slow. Last but not least, this is the slot for the graviton lens. You can either belt them in or just manually put them in. As you can see, the consumption rate is really low, so you can put 100 in and it would take ages. Basically, it takes at least 10 minutes to convert just one, so it will be hours if you put in a full stack. So that's even something you could consider doing manually, because it just takes forever to be used up. As you can see, we're getting more efficient. We're now already over 3, and so on. So this will just keep improving until we get around 10 per minute, but of course that will depend on how much energy we actually have going. Just getting the photons, of course, by itself is not enough, and just keep in mind that you can copy paste the recipes as well. So copy, paste, 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 paste. That's the same principle as we've seen with other facilities where you can do production. If you do this and do this, you can copy the recipes as well. So this is actually now also producing photons. We don't really need the energy on this planet, I think. We're pretty close to using a full gigawatt, but the energy from the sphere is not included in that just yet. Then, artificial stars. So let's talk about artificial stars and antimatter. Antimatter is constructed from, hey look, it's the same antimatter and hydrogen that these facilities are producing, so that is very convenient. We also need the containment spheres, and we need some default titanium alloy. So that's not too exciting. But then if we look to the artificial stars, what we need is actually more titanium stuff, as well as spheres, as well as processors. So again, these are not too exciting, but that means that if we are going to build the production for the antimatter, we probably want to build it somewhere close to where we are now. And then we need particle colliders. Do I actually have particle colliders on me at the moment? Of course I do, because I prepared. You need a few particle colliders to actually transform your photons into antimatter. And this is a pretty straightforward process, and remember, these things are actually, you can actually belt things in. But what you can do is something like this. And this is not going to be the prettiest build, because we are actually not going to be using this part of the build too much. I'll explain why in a second. But if you do it like that, you can belt out the... I'm sorry, talking and clicking at the same time. You can belt out the photons, you can have them be put into the colliders. The colliders are very fast producing when it comes to the this recipe. Like so, and of course I'm not doing this in the smartest way. So doing it like this is more efficient. We need to make sure this is all powered. As you can see, we still have the last few researchers coming in as well. And of course we need to set the recipe. So these things only produce a very few things, but this is the recipe we need. And as you can see, it's a very fast recipe. Assuming it would actually show, it just takes 2 seconds to make 2. And that is a lot faster than these things are producing it, because these are only producing about 3 per minute. So yeah, you don't really need 4 of these, but just to give you an idea of how you can make this build And of course, if you put these closer to the ray receivers, you could even do it all on the same belt. Anyway, this means we are now actually producing some of the nice antimatter that will be going into here. And as you can see, everything else is already coming in. So the spheres that we are creating in the other build are already coming in over here. Might as well do this. And it's going to pick up some more. And then the only thing that we have left is the antimatter. Which makes me wonder, where did my antimatter go from this one? Ah, it's actually in here, but it needs 12. So as you can see, this is a very expensive recipe. And I just used my standard build as always. But this is kind of overkill. If you manage to actually have this full thing producing, yeah, good for you. You have a lot of energy production going on. And yeah, probably you are much further in the game than we are at the moment already. Alright, so that's the colliders, that's the antimatter. Now, if we are making all of this, then in order to make white signs, we actually have everything we need, because we need all the different colors of signs, which we already have, and we need the antimatter to also be used in the universe matrix. Now, there's a few ways you can do this, and there is the pretty way and the efficient way. And I am going to start with the efficient way, because we have this beautiful thing, and you can see it working, and yeah, just look at it, it's pretty. We're also going to take it down and replace it. The good news is, we're going to replace it with something that is even prettier. There is one problem with that. There's roughly 10,000 of each in it. You can see my purple science is my bottleneck at the moment. I am actually going to set this to storage. And why am I doing that? Because I don't want to have any more research coming in. And we are going to drain this. And why are we going to drain this? Because, like I said, we are going to replace it. Now, I made a little helper build for this. I called it Little Helper. We're almost, well, not almost there yet, but we're getting closer to Christmas. And I thought it was appropriate, so... anyway, that means that if I put that to storage, and what we can do then in that case is simply say, okay guys, let's put in some drones. And we probably can do something like this. There we go. Click this one, put it in. Click some more, put it in. And remember, you can even do this across the planet if you need to. So there's no reason for you to ever really run up close to a facility like this and do this manually. Well, you're still doing it manually, but you know what I mean. That means this thing is empty. We still have some research on the belts, but basically what we're going to do now is this. Yay! Okay, so what are we going to build? And now I do hope this thing is far enough away, but actually we're going to find out, because we are going to build my Captain Planet build. For those of you who get the reference, good for you. We can kind of estimate your age now, but Captain Planet was an awesome show that I watched when I was a kid. Anyway, it had all the colors involved as well, in case you're wondering. So, my new build. It's coming up. Now, what is the idea of this build? We have some ray receivers in here. As you can see, the basis is pretty much the same, but it's a little bit different. We have some colliders in here as well. We have ray receivers in here, and we have science facilities in here. And the science facilities are going to be producing our white science, and straight putting that white science into our research facility. So we can actually start researching straight away. Now, this is actually a multi-purpose type of facility, because we're currently making the white science, but if you want, you can simply switch the white science into production of consumption of normal science, because as you can see, we are still making this, and that way you can simply switch it back set a production of, research of normal earlier research, if that is what you need to do at that point. I'm going to swap it back because we want to be focusing on producing white science. And as you can see, we still have our standard run-of-the-mill reception of all the different types of sciences. So this should now be drawing in from our little helper as soon as I put it to supply again. Where did it go? Where did it go? Where's my little helper? There it is. Local supply, local supply. So this will now get drained again. It will take a while for it to be completely drained, but at least we're not wasting anything. So as you can see, this is starting up production, and we should now be getting in our first research when it comes to the actual white research. Let me see where that's actually coming in. Oh, yeah, so let me explain this, by the way. So over here, look at this, this is so nice. Anyway, over here we have the ray receivers. These are making the critical photons, just like before. And they are being fed straight into one of the particle colliders, and then the particle colliders are spitting them out in this direction. They are going on this far belt. They're first going into this station, because we also get hydrogen and we need to ship that off to somewhere else. I should probably put some drones in there. And other than that, we still have the 5 belts with all the colors. So as you can see, they're kind of going around. They are receiving everything, but they still don't have the antimatter, so that's the bottleneck at the moment. Part of the reason this is a bottleneck, because as you can see, I have quite a few of the ray receivers here, is because we built the ray receivers on the other end during my earlier exam. So as you can see, these are only producing 1.3 per minute. And that's because my production over here is kind of consuming that. We were using that for the antimatter, but remember, the antimatter is only used for one purpose. Okay, hydrogen. I should put hydrogen in here as well, but it's already fully stacked up. So as you can see, this was now bottlenecked. This is now producing the antimatter, and the antimatter is then shipped off to build the other build that we didn't actually put down. I think it's the artificial stars. So if we put those here, we will now be building artificial stars, and this is pretty straightforward for what it needs, so that should take care of itself. I am going to scale this production down a little bit because we don't need that much over here. And if I do that and we fly back to our little polar hub, what we will see now is that hopefully, as you can see, we're now no longer at 1.3, we're now at 2 per minute. Now, this is without the graviton lenses, so if we zoom out for a moment, and now I do need to track down my little facility, we have quite a few graviton lenses over here, so that's not a problem. We've been mass producing them since a while now. If you simply take, like I said, one stack, you put them in, you can barely see this move. And this is just one being consumed. There's still 99 left, and now we bumped up the production to almost 4 per minute. You can do the same for all the other ones. And basically, if you do this, you only need to come back in a few hours to scale this up, and you will probably be coming back much more often than that. I won't have you sit through me filling all of these up, but you get the point, I guess. That also means that we need to start switching this, because what we want to be doing over here is actually now researching the white science. And as you can see, we've already produced a few. It's now slowly ticking down. We haven't really reached optimal production yet, because these are still scaling up. I haven't put graviton lenses and all of them, but as soon as I've done that, we should be getting quite a lot of antimatter per second. And of course, the best way to further improve on that is simply build your Dyson Sphere, build more ray receivers, and so on, and so on, and so on. But as you can see, we're already kind of approaching the cap in terms of how much we can actually process from our current Dyson Sphere. This is one way of doing this. So, and I hope you agree, this is just so beautiful. Yes, right. Okay. This is just one way of doing this. So if you're like, yeah, that's great TDA, but I just want to be efficient, Joe. It looks very pretty, but pretty does not mean efficient. Then I have a plan B for you. It's a very easy way to scale this up really fast, because of course the Polar Hub, you can stack those science facilities up quite high, but you will, if you're really serious about the end game, you will reach a point where that is no longer that efficient. What you can do is simply do a build like this. Oh, too close to another. I was about to say, why isn't it working? There we go. It's a little bit more complicated than our previous science builds. You can actually stack these up higher, but I wanted to have them under the ILS just to keep it a little neat. This is requesting all the different types of sciences. You actually want warpers in here as well, most likely, because you might be building the sciences on other planets. I am currently building everything on this planet, so I don't need that necessarily, but again, that completely depends on where you are in your progress and where you're building stuff. So this one is actually requesting warpers, belting it into the other one, so both of these now have warpers. This is just supplying the universe matrices. So anything you make over here will actually be transported to a next zone. I am going to remove this, because if we don't, we will get into a situation where we're trying to make the the white signs in two places. There we go. Let's remove this. And let's remove that. But what you could do, and I think this is kind of nice, I'm calling this my Borg cube, hoping this will be placed down. There we go. This is a very simple build, and it's just a block. So if at some point you reach a place in the game where you're actually fully using this and you need more, then all you need to do is make a second one. I actually didn't have enough science facilities. So bad at preparation. There we go. This will be all lit up. It's going to be all white, kind of Borg-ish. I guess Borg could be with green signs as well, for those of you Star Trek fans. But yeah, I just think this is a really cool build like this. The only thing this does is just request white science and process it for your research. But if you're going to do that, you might as well do it in a cool way. So, just an option, but we will be using our plan B, which is the other facility. Now we're actually producing this like... Oh wait, this is set to demands. Let's not do that. Let's just set this to supply. And let's kick this out. And yes, I am going to delete 10,000 hydrogen, because as you could see, the hydrogen being produced over here was actually not feeding into this. So this was one downside of belting this straight in, because there's two different items on one belt. But this should now be working. As you can see, we have some antimatter rods. And once again, I am just going to kick something out of my inventory to make some space. But these antimatter rods are really cool. Just to give you a quick comparison. So, as we know, the deuterium fuel rods are already pretty cool. They were giving us 600 megajoules with a 300% bonus. These are 7.2 gigajoules. So that is 12 times as much. And it also has a fuel chamber generation bonus of 500%. So, one of these is 12 of those. So, yeah, pretty awesome. If you have your inventory full of that stuff, I don't see you running out anytime soon. But then, of course, we are using them mostly. So if you get this production up and running quite steadily, what you can do is then make some artificial suns. And as you can see, we are having some supply issues when it comes to our frame material, apparently. But once you start making this, you just put those down. They work as any other fuel center. The fission plant, for example, which is a building we haven't actually built, but it uses the deuterium fuel rods. This works the exact same way, only it looks way cooler than any of the other power facilities. So then, all we need to do now is kind of optimize our science production, wait a bit, and then we can see that we've actually reached the end of the game. I will be kind of optimizing the production facilities around this planet while I wait, and we can meet back here to see us completing the you win the game. And welcome back. We're in the final stretch. We're almost there. The Dyson Sphere that we've been building is almost complete. And if you don't get the hint by now, then I don't know what to say. But anyway, just kidding. I've been upgrading my production facilities quite a lot. We're actually mass producing science at the moment, so you can actually see that our bottleneck right now is antimatter, which we're capped because we would basically need a bigger Dyson sphere in order to produce more antimatter, because these are operating at full efficiency. Well, not full efficiency actually, but they're producing at max capacity, I should say. Yeah, I've been upgrading a few things around the planet. Generally speaking, what you then find is that when you build something, at least if you're building it the way I've been doing, something improves, then you find out you need something else more, you build that, then you have to fly around figuring out what else is your bottleneck and so on. Once again, it's kind of at least what I'm planning to fix in the next playthrough. It's a different approach. I actually have no idea whether or not it's a good idea or not, but I guess we can find out together. But yeah, almost there. Let's take a quick look and let's fly a little bit towards our Dyson Sphere. Look, it's so pretty. But we don't want to miss that pop-up where we win the game. And you could argue this is not actually a sphere, but yeah, it counts. It actually takes up quite a lot of rockets to fill it up. Ah, there we go. Builder of great civilizations. You have completed the Dyson Sphere Program, but you can continue the game. And then continuing the game we will, but like I said, probably in a different playthrough. I might have a few other things coming up just in between while I'm preparing the next playthrough. But I hope you enjoyed this one. If there's anything specific that you want to ask, if there's something you would like to see, if you have feedback, comments, whatever it is you want to share, please do. I read all the comments. I try to reply to all the comments. And of course, your feedback is very much well appreciated, because in the end, I am doing this partially for me because the game is a lot of fun to play. But of course, it helps if what I'm doing is actually entertaining to you as well. So again, if there's anything you want, please let me know. For now, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.